very soon. So I'm going to do something a little unusual, colleagues. I'm going to have us, even though we'll probably have to do two different motions depending on what we want to do, but I wanted to bring your attention to two bills because they are very close and I'm almost thinking identical maybe in nature. We're now going to turn to CB-083-2024 and CB-091-2024, an act concerning vehicle law, noise abatement, and monitoring systems. At this time, I'll turn to Ms. Eubanks. Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, of course you can ask a question.
Madam Clerk, what was the two bills you named? 83 and
91.
I make a motion that we hold indefinitely CB-91.
2023 or 2024?
Is that a real motion, Mr. Chair? Mr. Vice Chair? Wait, y'all haven't even let me introduce the bill's property. The public watching online is like, what is she doing? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Skinner, and then I'm going back to my agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for this privilege. Regarding CB-91 2024, the county executive respectfully requests to withdraw CB-91
Oh, look at that.
2024. Mr. Denoga said he's going to incorporate our language. So as long as he does that, we're withdrawing.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Vice Chair, would you mind withdrawing your motion so I can get through the bills and then we can work it out at the end?
Madam Chair, I stand corrected. I withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The motion, Madam Clerk, the motion is withdrawn. Thank you so much, Councilmember Olson, for withdrawing the second. And Jernoga, y'all are just acting so. What have y'all been drinking? That's what I want to know. You guys are so rambunctious today. Is that what it is? Well, y'all better be this excited for the Halloween costumes I'm requesting. Anyway, Ms. Eubanks, if you can go over CB-83 and CB-91, we'll consider them both together, and I'm sure the committee will take an action. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. CB-83 was presented and referred to the Health, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee on September 17th, 2024, as well as CB-91. CB-83 establishes a pilot program to use noise abatement monitoring systems in the county to enforce motor vehicle noise requirements. The noise abatement mechanism will serve as an enforcement of the motor vehicle noise mitigation. Officer law for 83 and 91 indicated that they find it to be in proper legislative form and see no legal impediments to its enactment. We did receive written comments from Mr. Ron West from Fort Washington in support of 83 and 91. And the policy analysis and physical impact statement is in your binder on page 62 for 83 and 81 for 91. And Mr. Malcolm Moody, the legislative budget and policy analyst, will provide an overview. We do have a proposed draft 2 for CB-83. It's not the version that's in your binder. You have a hard copy. And the legislative officer, Ms. Glassman, will go over the language in the proposed draft 2.
Thank you, Ms. Eubanks. And, Mr. Moody, did you want to say something or look at me like? No. Okay. Ms. Glassman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair Fisher and Vice Chair Hawkins. You have before you CB-083-2024. We have a couple of amendments that we've married the two bills and in collaboration with Ms. Skinner. Just technically, on page 1, 16 through 18 is bold.
Ms. Glassman, just to slow us down, we're going to be amending 83, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so colleagues, please refer to 83. Continue, Ms. Glassman.
Okay. And on page 2, you will find a list of definitions. The first one is agency. The second one is noise abatement monitoring system. The third is noise abatement monitoring system operator. The next one is owner. And the final one is violation. So these are definitions that were in the state bill. So we also on page 3, you will see under sections 19-12.02 program establishment. That has been added. Technical, there's some technical ones from line 25, 27, and 30. And let's see. Page 4, they're also technical. And if you, let's see. The last one, page 5, are technical in nature. And the last page, page 6, goes into fines. So it currently reads, the citation must be mailed. So it's crossed out, applicable to the motor vehicle should be mailed under this division.
Thank you, Ms. Glassman, for that. I know I'm gonna hear a motion, I'm sure, to accept those amendments. Before I do that, I'll turn to the bill sponsors, 'cause that's what I'm supposed to do. Councilman, Vice Chair Hawkins and Chair Emeritus Jernoga, do you want to make any comments on your legislation before we consider amendments? I guess I'll turn to Chair Emeritus.
Consistent with what was said by other Chair Emeritus, Mr. Hawkins and Ms. Skinner, 83, I think, is the better version to go with, because the question of whether the language goes into subtitle 19 or 18, and we think that subtitle 19, pollution, particularly noise pollution, is where this belongs, rather than the police, really public safety agency section, which is subtitle 18. That's more administrative and not enforcement related rules. Both bills had some deficiencies in incorporating the state law, and Ms. Skinner has provided a very useful chart showing discrepancies that we should incorporate. So the bill needs to incorporate the correct versions in 91 into 83. So we can do that. If the bill is held, we can do that pretty quickly, I think.
So, could I entertain a motion to accept the draft 2 for 83 at this time? Okay, we have a motion to accept the amendments that Ms. Glassman overviewed with the committee for CB. We're on CB 83 for draft 2. It was moved by Councilmember Olson, second by Councilmember Watson. Madam Clerk, can you take the roll?
Chair Fisher,
Aye.
Councilmember Blagay,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hawkins. Madam Clerk, I vote aye. Councilmember Olson.
Aye.
Councilmember Watson.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Now we're working on CB 83 in draft 2. At this time, I'll turn to Ms. Skinner and our amazing representatives from our police department for some discussion. But before we do that, so I don't forget, Ms. Hernandez, Office of Law.
Thank you. The Office of Law is very excited that there will only be one bill. And with all the incorporated changes, we hope to find it legally sufficient.
Thank you. Ms. Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Am I allowed to go into the very technical amendments? I know Mr. Denoka said we're going to work offline, but there are at least 2, I think, that I really want to address while police are here.
Yes.
Okay, great. And this time we have Mr. Swanger and Mr. Klein here on CB 83, 2024 proposed draft 2. So page 2, line 1 of the proposed draft 2, we're asking that chief means the chief of the Prince George's County Police Department. Even though department in line 2, explains that, let's just make sure it's tight there if we can. Page 3, under section, I think it's line 14, line 14, section 19-12603, where it goes into the monitoring systems. Line 15 reads, the county must deploy and utilize 3 noise abatement monitoring systems. We're asking that it mirror the state law and saying at least no more than 3. And I'll let Mr. Swanger go into why that's important from an operations perspective for Prince George's County Police Department to not make it 3, but no more than 3.
You want to pause there and have Mr.
Sure,
Swanger?
that's perfect
Let's
timing.
pause, Mr. Swanger.
Good afternoon, Major Swanger.
Major, sorry.
No, that's totally fine. I was just introducing myself. I'm the Executive Officer to Assistant Chief Hale. we would like that change in the language because it's our full intent to deploy 3 units, but we don't want to be beholden to always deploying 3 units because we can't determine at this point if the vendor we've used is going to be able to comply and comply well, if the deployment strategy, either mobile trailers or fixed sites attached to poles somewhere in the county, which is going to be better. So we would like it to say up to 3 units. That way we have some flexibility in deployment, especially during this pilot.
Understood. And what happens if one breaks?
What happens when one breaks? Because I'm
When one
sure
breaks.
somebody's going to run into them or something will happen. That's the nature of police work. We're all going to learn together, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Skinner, you can continue with the changes.
Thank you, Mr. Major Swanger, and thank you, Madam Chair. The other amendment on page 5, the proposed draft 2, from my reading of it, it has 2 sections that focus on enforcement. And I think that's just redundant. So line 2 has operations and enforcement. I think we could leave that as is and maybe change line 24 where it says enforcement again and just title that civil penalties.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I understand, but while the police department is here, I want them to know that I'm actually working, doing my job.
We all want to know that.
Okay.
Councilmember Denoga, everyone gets their time to shine. Right now it's Ms. Skinner. Go ahead, Ms. Skinner.
Oh, this is shining. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. And then I think the last change is on page
Yes.
6. This was important. If we look at line 3, this talks about the use of fines, right? Like what the money can be used for that's collected. And I would recommend making a new section, so that could be section 19-126.06, and title it Use of Funds, which mirrors the state law and I think even Montgomery County's code or law. And that way it's clear to what the funds can be used for. But more importantly, there's a section that was removed and we don't know why that section was removed. It should read, so after on line 6, where it says monitoring systems, the rest of the language should say must be used solely, (1), to recover the cost of implementing and administering the noise abatement monitoring systems and for public safety purposes, including pedestrian safety programs. So that was really important, at least from from the police department. So we wanted to at least make sure that same language was also captured in this proposed draft 2. And I think that's all I have. Did I leave anything out, Major Klein or Major Swanger? Okay.
Does that, just real quick, does that address the excess funds? I know it says up. I just want to make sure. Excess.
Yes, it does, because it has
Okay.
the asterisk on line 21, or I'm sorry. Actually, you know what? On my draft, on the police department's draft, CB-91, it did have that. So we want to make sure all of the language pertaining to the use of funds is also incorporated in the proposed draft 2.
Okay. Thank you for that overview of the administration's amendments.
Thank you.
At this time, I will now take, we have one person who signed up to testify, and then I will take questions from colleagues, okay? And I think I've got Councilmember Watson first. We have Mr. Ron Weiss. If you could just join us in this seat here, sir. Thank you for waiting patiently. Excited to hear from you. So when you're ready, you can just press the button on the mic and address the committee. And we're doing you're signed up for CB-91 and 83, and we're discussing them together, so you can speak on both.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Fisher and members of the committee and Councilmember Denogra and Ivy. Pleased to be here. I'm Ron Weiss. I live in Fort Washington. I'm here to express my strong support for CB-083-2024, and I urge that you vote in favor of this important bill. As I grow older, I find myself thinking more about safety, particularly the need for me to return home safely to my family. The time I spend with them feels more precious than ever. Many of us have experienced driving on a highway when the roar of an excessively loud car suddenly breaks our concentration. Even as a careful, law-abiding driver, I can't help but feel unsafe at that moment. Cars are often just feet away, and I worry that other drivers are also distracted by the noise. It's in these fleeting moments that the risk of a serious accident increases, a mistake that could be fatal. By passing this bill, we can better enforce the law and hold people accountable for dangerous behavior that puts us all at risk. I ask that you take this step to protect the safety of our roads and our community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Weiss. Before I let you go, does any colleagues have a question or comment for our witness today? Okay. Thank you so much for joining us in the committee, Mr. Weiss. We appreciate your participation. And at this time, I'm going to turn to council members with questions. I'm going to turn to Councilmember Watson, unless Ms. Skinner has another comment. What's happening on this side?
I think Mr. Hawkins and I want to thank Mr. Ron Weiss for coming out today. I met him at one of the 210 speed camera meetings. So good to see you again, sir.
Sweetheart. Councilmember Watson.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all the information. I do have a question about where the cameras will go. I know it states that, they're going to publish a notice of the location on the county website, but how do you determine where they go? I mean, there's noise across the county, so are they the noisiest areas? Do you select it based on the noise, or how is the position or the area for the cameras selected? Thank you.
That's a great question, ma'am. We fully intend on deploying them at various locations throughout the county based on, in part, community complaints. And we've already received some complaints for excessive noise in certain areas. A lot of our deployment is also probably based on road conditions and our ability to either place a trailer or a tie into fixed infrastructure so that we can actually place these devices, because it's my understanding that this type of enforcement system requires multiple cameras and multiple sound or acoustic sensors to be placed. So a lot of our deployment strategy will probably be based on the ability to source the infrastructure or the camera systems in safe locations that are off of the roadway.
Will they be major roadways, like main highways, or just neighborhood streets? What does that look like?
Another great question. I think our intent is to start with residential areas that have high traffic flow. So for, say, the National Harbor, or an apartment complex or townhouse community that has a major roadway or a major intersection passing by where there's extremely loud traffic. And I think a lot of this will be driven by community complaints and feasibility studies.
Okay, and then, so what's the overall goal of the pilot? So when I look at it and I say, okay, once we find out the information, that there's an area that has extra loud traffic and you're citing them for giving them warnings, etc. What's the goal after that, do you see?
The legislative intent, as I understand it from the state, was to run this pilot program here in Prince George's County to test the efficacy of this type of enforcement. And if we can prove that it works and it's sustainable, and that I'm sorry, by sustainable I mean that we can correctly enforce and support those violations in a court, and we see some benefit to the community from it, then we would ask the state to extend it and turn it into a full enforcement program similar to our red light enforcement and speed camera enforcement programs.
Right, and maybe probably need to read the state legislation, because I'm not sure what would be considered noise for somebody to get their vehicle captured on camera. Would it be a loud muffler? Would it be loud music? Would it be a pop tire? I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out, when would someone get a ticket based on whatever noise level is exceeding what's listed in the legislation?
Sure. It sounds like it's 85 decibels, which it just says an 85 decibel threshold. So we assume, and we're moving on forward believing this is going to mostly be loud exhaust.
Okay.
However, any noise that would break that decibel threshold, aside from what's been excluded, so some commercial vehicle traffic like a dump truck picking up dumpsters and that kind of thing, we could potentially cite for. But I think that's the goal of the pilot program. Was we need to learn this. We're the first in the state to do it, along with our partners in Montgomery County, and we're going to kind of learn together and enforce this as we deem appropriate.
Right. And I'm just putting this out here also, wouldn't noise level kind of be assessed differently by different people? So I can complain about the noise in my area, but it might be, not as noisy to somebody else. So do you come out and actually use a noise monitor to say, okay, this vehicle is 85 decibels or more? I'm just trying to figure out how that's determined, the vehicle noise level, and if it's consistent. Would it have to be consistent noise level, or is it just one time?
So the standard comes from two different federal agencies. They set the Department of Energy, and I don't recall the other one, but this comes from two different federal standards. We're just mirroring their language on the actual noise levels. And as far as like when you're talking like a spike of noise or the persistent noise,
Right.
It's my understanding that if you are in the enforcement zone, so in the area that the cameras and the acoustic sensors are capturing, if you break that threshold, that 85 decibel threshold, you're already above the posted limit, which is 80 decibels. So now you're at least 5 decibels above it. We would capture you and then issue you either a warning notice or a violation notice.
So it would make sense to actually put the cameras in locations where there's a consistent loud noise level, instead of maybe a highway where you're going to get it off and on. Right?
Probably, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe you're right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay,
Noted.
next I have Councilmember Janoga, unless the committee member has a question. Okay, Councilmember Janoga. And then Olson, I think.
I just had one thing to say.
I can defer to the committee.
And I have Chair Ivey, too.
Very quickly, I was
Okay,
just going
go
to say that these are mobile, so it's not like 3 fixed locations forever. So, it may be that, it may be an issue out in your area, it might be an issue out in my area, it may be, that they can move them around a little bit. So it's not just 3, period, that's it, yeah.
Oh, no, I got it.
Okay. All right.
Just wondering how it's determined.
I'm going to go to Councilmember Janoga and then Chair Ivey.
In terms of the way the law is written, I agree. I think it's 85 decibels, but it's 5 decibels above the state limit, which I guess is 80, and it references a state code section for that. There's also certified the devices that have to be procured that measure that. So that's part of what your task is. I guess it's very complicated because you got a camera, you got a noise meter, you got to take a picture. In terms of where to place these, I think I agree that community complaints are going to drive it. And one of the suggestions that I had was for our speed cameras, we have a task force or a committee that meets and talks about where to add additional speed cameras. We should include it on that committee's task force, stop sign camera locations and these noise camera locations. And it has to be mobile, because one thing that's going to occur, there'll be an app with the locations, and it'll be updated daily, weekly, probably daily, hourly. So you got to move them around, otherwise you're not going to get any violations, because people will just avoid that. People with the loud cars, and it's not traffic generically that's going to make. It's really, I think, you're going after. It's individual violators, because you got to really be working at it to get, I think, that high decibel level. Except for a motorcycle, I'm not sure how they're dealing with motorcycles. It doesn't seem to be exempted. Do you know anything about how motorcycles are looked at?
I don't know that they're treated any differently than regular sedans, sir.
Okay.
At this time, I think it's just 85 decibels is the limit.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Chair Ivey?
Thank you. I actually just wanted to thank Major Swanger, because you might remember that 4 years ago, you helped me get a huge bus moved out of a community that had been there for a decade. And it took 2 years of me working with everybody in the world to get this bus moved, but you're the one who cracked the code and got it moved. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Does he move
Everyone's
boats
so
too?
energetic
Can he
and
move boats?
happy
Because
here.
I got some of those that you could use it.
Yeah, the boats are crazy. I had a boat moving recently. Councilmember Oriata?
Thank you. I stepped away, but I'm always watching. So I did have a quick question. And I think Councilmember Denoga answered it offline, but really getting clarity about how people get fined, because I know I don't know how loud my car is or music is. It's not like when you're speeding and you know you're speeding because there's a sign and the car tells me how fast I'm going. And so from what he said about want to get clarity, for the first one, you always get a warning no matter the location. And then for the second time after a time frame, then is only when you can get a violation. And I'm not really car buff, so I don't know. Is it places where people can test and know that they're loud? What does that really sound like? Because I have no idea what that sounds like. It's, loud music. Yeah, I have no sense of that. So I just was curious. Okay.
Let me start out. Okay. There are some guardrails here. There's some guardrails. You're correct. The first violation would be a warning, and then I think there's a 30-day cooling off period where you will have received a violation, your notice of a warning, before we could take enforcement action against you and actually issue you fines. But I'll tell you that this legislation mirrors a lot of the state's laws on vehicle sales. So you wouldn't be able to go to a dealership and buy a vehicle that passed a Maryland inspection. That's going to be in violation of this law. Or took something away, like a muffler.
Trust me, they know. I didn't even think they needed a notice, but anyway. Councilmember Watson.
Can I just follow up on her question? And not that I'm at all against what we're trying to do here. I just wanted to find out, have some additional questions based on kind of my thought process through this. So when I go to court to appeal a speeding ticket, how would I go to court to appeal this? Well, so I'm going to court, and how would you all prove that? You would use the camera footage and the level, the sound levels based on the camera footage in court to show that my car was in violation of the sound code.
Yes, ma'am. We would use a combination of the video with audio and then a directional, sensor array that pinpoints where the noise is coming from, and it would indicate. I demoed one of these systems down in Florida earlier this year, and the standard the company was using is they needed to be able to tell which tailpipe on the back of a car was actually making the noise, and they can drill down and tell you it's the third one from the right if they've got multiples on a vehicle. And it's pretty cool technology.
And then they'll provide the state with a true test copy. So you'll go to court, and the prosecutor will already have whatever Prince George's Police Department decides to use, to the judge, this is the system, this is how it works, and that'll be stamped for every single one of those appeals. So an officer won't, on that level, actually physically come in. It will just be that true test copy that the machine was working and all of that.
And it'll show a license plate.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Just like a speeding ticket.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Legay, and then I'm hoping we can take some actions. That's okay.
And I do want to just make sure, so this is specifically for drag racing. Well, so, okay, so what, not just, what are we targeting here? I just want to make sure if we're, is it drag racing? Who has these cars that are so loud?
You don't have them in District 6?
Where are they?
Yeah. It's
Okay, order everyone.
Where, but
Ms.
where
Legay
have
is
you seen
speaking, and then we're gonna go to our officers. I'm not keeping order well.
You've seen
Everyone,
them
Ms.
drag
Skinner?
racing.
Okay, everyone, you have to be called on by the chair to speak in this committee. So thank you, Ms. Legay. I have not been keeping order. Y'all are all talking. Okay, go ahead. Thank you to answer our officer to answer Ms. Legay, and then we'll go to Vice Chair Hawkins.
We need the Zoom button where you can raise your hand.
And I have to put y'all all on mute. Go ahead.
So what we're targeting, it's just not the illegal drag racing, it's the vehicles involved that are modified, all their exhaust systems, and we've probably all heard them. Anything that is not stock that when you buy the car off of the dealer lot, these are modified exhausts to be loud. So these are aftermarket exhaust systems that we're targeting. And those are typically associated with the drag racing community. So we kind of get a twofer there.
Got it.
Ms. Pliquet, any follow-up questions?
No, I mean, I just wanted to get a clarity if it was because drag racing, I would understand, but I hope this wasn't for somebody who has, look, I grew up a little without some money, and I have a, you know, you have one of those old putt cars, and somebody who has to drive a putt, and then they all of a sudden they're in court fighting for their lives. So like that's
No.
all I want to.
Thank you so much for that, Councilmember Blagay. And no, the 85 decibel is quite high, if you all have heard it. I think there's a motion from Vice Chair Hawkins. Go ahead, Mr. Vice Chair.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we hold this bill in order to discuss further with the administration to get it to where we need it.
Perfect. I second that. There's a motion to hold draft 2 of CB-83. It'll definitely be up next time. A motion by Vice Chair Hawkins, a second by Chair Fisher. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Chair Fisher,
Aye.
Councilmember Blagay,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hawkins.
I vote aye, and explaining my vote, Councilmember Blagay, just listen to Ron White's comments. I was on 210, and I'm a seasoned driver, and I heard that I almost hit the wall. And instead of staying on 210, I went down Allentown Road all the way to 4, came through your district, Diossi Road. I went home that way. That guy scared me so much. Anyway, I vote aye.
I don't know what
Councilmember Olson.
I will vote aye, even though I really wanted to pass this today. But I'll vote aye.
I know, but they have.
That's all right. I'll vote aye.
I'll
vote aye.
my motion.
No, let's work out the amendments offline. Y'all made me tired already. Go ahead, Councilmember Watson.
Councilmember Watson.
Vote aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And I know I'm sure you all will be able to, Councilmember Dernoga, I know you're not in this committee, but I'm going to be looking at you to finish up some of the amendments with Ms. Skinner, so it'll be ready next time. And Vice Chair Hawkins. Oh, I'm sorry. And Vice Chair Hawkins, I'll be looking at you too. Sorry, no. The two of you are, I don't know what happened today. The two of you are responsible for finishing this bill with Ms. Skinner, okay? And I'd like to entertain a motion to deal with CB-91 at this time.
So move, Madam Clerk, Madam Chair.
What are you moving to do with it, Mr.? You're gonna, you withdrew it? Oh. Oh, okay, you already withdrew it? Oh, I didn't take a motion, okay. Leroy, I don't need a motion when the exec is withdrawing their bill. Do I have to do anything?
If you want to play on the safe side, make a motion to accept the withdrawal.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept the withdrawal and the permanent table of that bill.
Withdrawal.
Second.
There's a motion to accept the withdrawal from the executive branch of CB-91 by Vice Chair Hawkins, a second by Councilmember Watson. Madam Clerk, if you could take the roll.
Chair Fisher,
Aye.
Councilmember Blagay, aye. Vice Chair Hawkins.
I vote aye.
Councilmember Olson.
Aye.
Councilmember Watson.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Great. Thank you all. The next, that concludes our legislation.